Good morning and welcome from Toronto, Canada. My name is Anna Sangster from the International Federation on Aging, and it is my pleasure to be with you here today to bring the latest webinar in the WHO IFA Age-Friendly series entitled Healthy Aging for Impact in the 21st Century, Nurturing Leadership and Building Capacity. It is a privilege this morning to be joined by Dr. Vania de la Fuente Nunez, Technical Officer within the Demographic Change and Healthy Aging Unit at the World Health Organization. Vania has had a key coordinating role in the development of various WHO initiatives, including the Global Campaign to Combat Ageism, and most recently supporting capacity building efforts, including the development, coordination, and delivery of the WHO's first ever online learning program on healthy aging, of which she has graciously agreed to discuss with us today. Now, before we kick things off, just a couple of housekeeping notes. First, the webinar recording and slides will all be made available to registrants post-webinar. Second, please ensure that all questions are submitted via the Q&A function. This allows for better coordination during the live Q&A and for us to keep record of any unanswered questions. With that said, I'll turn things over to you, Vania.
Thank you very much, Anna. And good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It is really a pleasure to have the opportunity to share this next hour with you and to talk about what we're doing at the World Health Organization to nurture leadership and build capacity in the area of aging. To really talk about what we're doing to generate transformative change as part of the decade of healthy aging. This is an area that I'm incredibly passionate about, and I hope that I'm able to transmit this same passion to you during the next hour. Specifically, I will be talking to you about the first ever Global Leaders Program on Aging, which is called Healthy Aging for Impact in the 21st Century, and which I lead and coordinate at WHO. We have just recently completed the pilot of the course, and we are launching a new wave with a larger pool of participants in September. I hope that by the end of this presentation, you are convinced to sign up. In terms of the agenda, today I will start the presentation by explaining the reasons behind this project. Why was this course needed? I will then touch on the target audiences and the specific objectives of the course, as well as the process that was followed to develop it. Then I will give an overview of the actual course and what makes it unique. And this will be followed by a presentation on the results of the pilot or first wave of the course that we carried out earlier this year. And I will conclude by illustrating where we're going from here. As was just explained by Anna, there will be an opportunity for questions after the presentation, so please do jot them down and post them on the chat so that these can be addressed at the very end. So why are we here? Why did we develop this course in the first place? Well, as many of you know, in 2015, the World Health Organization launched the World Report on Aging and Health, which brought together the latest and the best available evidence out there on aging and older people. This report centered around the new concept of healthy aging and offered a new public health framework for action to help advance the field of aging and to improve the health and well-being of older adults around the world. It was new and it was transformative. The 194 member states of the WHO embraced this new concept and this new public health framework through the adoption of the Global Strategy and Action Plan on Aging and Health in 2016, as you see on the slide. We had all the necessary basics to get going and to generate change at country level. But as we started engaging with aging focal points in government, with WHO and UN staff, and with staff in civil society organizations working on aging issues at country level, we realized that we did not yet have all the necessary basics. Healthy aging was a new concept, and we were working with a new public health framework. We soon realized that these stakeholders who drive action at country level often had a limited understanding of healthy aging and competencies to develop and implement policies and programs on aging. There were also important misconceptions about older adults and aging, which prevented policymakers and staff from asking the right questions and identifying the right opportunities that arise with an aging population. We also saw a lack of support networks and no leaders driving this agenda forward. The identification of these gaps in these stakeholder groups helped us identify the target audiences and the objectives of our training program. So on this slide, what you see is how we transform the gaps that I just presented into course objectives. In essence, what we wanted to achieve through a training program was to build the competences necessary to develop and implement policies and programs on healthy aging, to change participants' attitudes towards aging, to help participants connect, work together, and really build the international networks that are needed to drive impact at scale. We also wanted to generate a critical mass of informed leaders engaging in policy discussions around aging. After identifying these capacity building needs, we got started in the development of a course that could help us meet those needs. We took 3 important steps to develop the course. First, we designed a didactic strategy aligned with our course objectives. It was essential that this strategy was solution-oriented, as we really wanted participants to take action at country level, to develop and implement programs and policies on aging and health. It was equally important that our course fostered collaboration and network creation, as we wanted to generate that critical mass of leaders who help advance this agenda. For this reason, we decided to use an online format for the course. Building on the didactic strategy, we went on to step 2, which is the design of the course structure and content. The course content was carefully crafted to respond to the learning objectives of each module and to enable incremental learning. We developed reading materials, videos, teaching guides, and assignments. Third, we designed a platform that would host the course. This required identifying the right platform for our strategy and content, integrating the content on the platform. And as part of this step, we also identified and provided comprehensive training to the pool of tutors that would help deliver the course. In the next few slides, I will be talking about the actual course and what makes it unique and exciting. So please follow me. In a nutshell, Healthy Aging for Impact in the 21st Century aims to build leaders with the competence, the confidence, and the networks to develop and implement programs and policies that improve the lives of older people around the world. On the right-hand side of the slide, you see some course details. Basically, the course is grounded in an innovative e-didactic format with a focus on teamwork, peer-to-peer feedback, mentorship, and project-based collaboration. It operates in a collaborative online environment where participants work as part of a team of up to 5 participants and receive guidance from a dedicated tutor. In their learning journey, participants are guided through an open, structured, and solution design process. And they followed the 3 important steps that are outlined on the slide. First, participants interact with the content and the learning materials. They understand. Second, participants apply what they have learned by completing individual and team assignments. And third, participants digest what they have learned by reflecting on their own progress and providing each other with constructive feedback. The course runs for a total of 14 weeks, and its content is structured around an opening and a closing period, as well as 5 substantive modules that cover the effects of demographic and epidemiological shifts in society, the typical biological and psychosocial changes that affect individuals as they age, and the ways in which systemic inequalities play into each of these elements. The course also offers an overview of existing responses to population aging and some of their limitations. From Module 3 onwards, the Healthy Aging Framework is explained in detail, including its 2 components, age-friendly environments and integrated care. Teams work in collaboration cycles throughout the course as they complete assignments that involve identifying real-world challenges faced by older populations and finding evidence-based and context-specific responses. We wanted the course, as I mentioned, to be solution-oriented and to be practical, hands-on. Each assignment is designed throughout the course to gradually build up participants' skills, competence, and confidence while taking them one step closer towards the development of a concrete action plan on aging. In terms of the learning materials, the course has the World Report on Aging and Health at its core and uses video content in the form of expert videos to pull out interesting conversations and ideas from the report and bring them to life. It also has other supplementary content and learning material which help explore ideas that participants will come across throughout the course. And here are just a few images of the platform to give you a taste of its look and feel. This, what you see here is the landing page where you would find yourselves for the submission of an expression of interest to participate, which provides some general information about the course, including the learning objectives and a brief overview of what is covered under each module. And what you see on this slide is what a specific module of the course looks like. They all follow the same structure as the one that you see represented on the left-hand side navigation bar, so here. Which includes a section on overview and objectives, which is the tab that we have open here, which describe what will be covered in that specific module. There's also a tab on your task, which outlines the individual and the team assignments for that module and provides guidance on how to get started. There's also a section on materials, where participants have access to a carefully designed library for each module, which includes a series of reading materials as well as videos like the one that you see on the screen. Participants are also offered a series of guiding templates to help them complete the individual and the team assignments. The ones that you see here, for example, are from Module 4, where participants are asked to develop an action plan. Going back to the previous slide, you will see here that there are also other sections which include a short quiz for that specific module, and that allows participants to accrue points in that module. And there's also a feedback survey where we gather insights from participants regarding how they felt about the content of the module and how it was delivered. The platform also enables collaboration through the different channels. First, we have the Collab space, which is the space where teams meet and where they can discuss particular issues, assignments, or areas of interest. It is also the space where they can jointly work on assignments. They can start video chats and they can share files. The course also has a discussion forum that brings together the entire community to share their innovative ideas and experience on aging and older people. This is an essential part of the course as it helps to generate those international networks that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. I'm going to now play a very short video that I hope will give you a very quick snapshot on the course. I hope that your connection allows you to see and hear it okay. So here we go.
Population aging is a global issue. It impacts almost every country, and it also impacts on almost every area of WHO's work. It's very hard for any individual to be across all of those challenges and opportunities, and yet this program will allow those decision makers to have that broad perspective, but also to think about how it can be applied in a very, very practical way. The program aims to allow people to understand the challenges and the opportunities of population aging, to learn about what works and what doesn't work, and to then try and apply that in a practical way that can help them learn hands-on about some of the solutions to challenging local problems. It's not just an online program, it's actually a program which brings together participants so they can work on concrete projects together, but it will also help you build networks and be part of a global initiative which is really framed at making the world a better place.
All right, so that is the course in a nutshell. I am also very excited to be here and to share with you for the first time the results from the pilot or the first wave of the course, which we delivered in early 2020, so earlier this year. So here we have some information on who joined this first wave of the course. We received more than 500 applications from more than 80 countries, which exceeded the expectations that we had for the pilot. And also the number of places that we had available, because we really wanted to have a smaller pilot that would enable us to gather better lessons to then refine the course and launch greater waves in the future. So in the end, we accepted 236 participants from 65 countries covering all WHO regions. In accepting participants, we prioritized those who basically cover the target audiences that I presented at the beginning. In this first wave of the course, we had 41% of participants who were women and 20% who were men. And you will notice that there's a gap here, so that they don't sum up 100% because some people did not indicate their sex in the course. Also importantly, participants covered all age groups. So we had participants between 20 and 70 years old. The entire pilot was supported by a total of 6 different tutors located in 6 different countries. And I also wanted to present why people joined. You will see here that there are similarities between the reasons people joined and the gaps that drove us to develop the course in the first place. So for example, if we take Ibrahim from the Ministry of Health in Saudi Arabia, we see that he wanted to join the course to use the knowledge in updating older people health program activities and services in primary healthcare centers in Saudi Arabia to really improve the quality of care of older adults at all levels in the Ministry of Health and the community. We also have Mutoni from Kenya, from the Ministry of Health as well, who wanted to join to be better prepared to talk about the decade of healthy aging by the end of the program, and to use knowledge and information gained to influence the prioritization of healthy aging programming within the ministry, to advocate for more research on healthy aging, and advocate for the normalization and formalization of long-term care, which is still missing in many countries. And finally, we have a quote here from Taiwo from the World Health Organization, who wanted to join the course to have additional knowledge about aging and health, about age and health, which would then be utilized to further his technical support to member states. He wanted to develop additional skills for taking care of health and well-being of his older relatives, and also to identify issues that he needed to plan and start addressing personal health and social issues. Here is an overview of some of the most important key performance indicators from the course: retention, course achievement, and user satisfaction. At a quick glance, you will notice that we greened these indicators and actually surpassed the expectations we set before the course started. I would like to focus your attention on the retention indicator. As you see here, there's a huge jump between what we expected and what we actually achieved. We more than doubled it. This is a striking and incredibly positive result, given that our expected retention was already at the upper limit of the retention rates that are generally seen in online courses. So we know that there is generally a completion between 5 to 30% in online courses. I would also like to highlight the very high user satisfaction achieved in the course, which is an indicator of the course's ability to meet participants' needs. As you see, participants gave close to the highest possible rating to each individual module and also to the course as a whole. But let me just add some qualitative detail to those numbers. On this slide, what you see is some of the feedback that we received after the course. I have purposefully included quotes from our 3 main target audiences. So that's aging focal points in local or national government, WHO and UN staff, and staff in civil society organizations working on aging. Let us start with Tumol from the government in Mauritius, who reflected that the course had changed his approach to the problems and challenges faced by older persons. I quote him, "I have learned to look at the problems of old age from a different perspective, which is so interested and appropriate, that is from a healthy aging perspective." Then we have a quote from Oluwa Yemisi from the World Health Organization, who says, I quote, "I have started using some of the information about healthy aging in our centers for older persons in Nigeria, for older person that has almost lost hope on how to cope with health and well-being." And finally, we have an example from Padmaja from a civil society organization in Canada, who says, "As a member of the Active Aging Action Team at the City of Calgary, I intend to collaborate with city recreation departments and other resource centers for older adults to develop interventions to promote healthy aging of all Calgarians." We also gathered feedback from our dedicated group of tutors who shared with us details about what they gained from the course and why they would encourage other people to become part of healthy aging for impact in the 21st century. They all shared that the course gave them an opportunity to really grow as an educator, even after years of experience teaching. As I mentioned earlier, as part of the development of the course, there's also a comprehensive training of tutors that is conducted before the course starts. Tutors also explained that they gained new skills and that they were enriched by the multicultural environment and the team spirit among tutors and also among participants, the participants that they guided. They were motivated and really driven to be part of a greater goal and to follow this common vision and shared values throughout the program. In terms of next steps, well, the first leaves of our capacity building tree sprouted earlier this year when we completed the first wave of the course. Our aim now is to nurture leadership and build capacity until we have a full-grown tree. As many of you know, we are now getting ready for a decade of healthy aging that will span until 2030. The decade is really a participatory and sustained global effort, which is centered around the voices, the rights, and the needs of older people. It is about accelerating progress. And it offers a very exciting and unique global opportunity to catalyze the healthy aging approach across all countries and settings. Healthy aging for impact in the 21st century empowers participants to become the change agents that are needed to generate and drive action for the decade of healthy aging. In September of this year, we will be launching a new wave of the course. We will be using a refined version of the course based on the feedback that we received from participants and from the tutors during the last round. Up to 800 participants will be given the opportunity to be trained and to become part of this movement. In 2021, we will be looking into translating the content into at least another UN language, as well as identifying and training tutors who can deliver the course in that language. And by 2030, which marks the end of the decade of healthy aging, we hope to have this full tree, this critical mass of trained leaders who actively advance the healthy aging agenda around the world. With this presentation, what I've tried to present is really the why, the how, and the what of the course, including not only what the course is, but also what it achieves so far. I really hope to have conveyed the great potential of this Global Leaders course. It is not just an online program, as we heard earlier. It is a course that brings together participants from all over the world to learn about healthy aging and to really work on concrete projects related to aging that can make an impact. It is a global initiative which is really framed around making the world a better place. If you belong to any of these target audiences, I really encourage you to sign up by going to the website below. I believe that a link will also be provided so that you can easily click on it. Thank you so much for your attention, and I looked forward to answering any questions that you may have posted on the chat so far.
Thank you so much, Vanya. That was fantastic. I am just, as you said, sharing the link for the registration within the chat function for everybody. So that's there accessible, and I'll make sure that that's part of our post-webinar materials that we send out as well.
Brilliant.
As Vanya was saying, I've actually joined this course. It's fantastic. It's very robust, and it's amazing to kind of see and be able to collaborate internationally on an action plan and see that come to fruition at the end of the course. It was fantastic. So very eager for other people to join, and we'll move into some questions now.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
A few questions, Vanya, about if you can maybe expand on who the course is really aimed at.
Who it is aimed at?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So as I meant, so basically the course is, the main purpose of the course is to drive action at country level. So it is really aimed at policymakers who may be working at national level. So for example, in a given ministry and who are given the envelope of aging, but also policymakers who may be working at a local level. So many of you are probably part of the global network of age-friendly cities and communities, which really drives a lot of action at a local level. And we're looking forward to having people who are involved in that movement to join the course. Because as I mentioned briefly, the part of the content that is covered in the course is on age-friendly environments. So that would be an opportunity for participants to really connect with other people who are maybe working, for example, on age-friendly environments in another part of the world, share ideas, and also build on the learning from the course to then develop concrete solutions to challenges that they encounter in their specific context. Beyond that target audience, we're also looking to train WHO and UN staff working at country level, because of course, and a very important role of UN staff and WHO staff is to support people working at country level, so government normally, to develop policies and programs on given areas, in this case, aging. If these staff are actually not, if they don't have the competence and the skills and the knowledge related to healthy aging, they will not be able to then adequately support government in the development of these programs. And the final target audience of the program is really civil society organizations, so staff working in these organizations who have a focus on aging, because they also drive action at country level.
Thanks so much, Vanya. So one question that's, and I thought about this myself and noticed the impact while we were kind of doing the pilot program, but is there a thought to how COVID will be integrated into the course, or how has it affected the course, and kind of future iterations of it?
That is a very pertinent and timely question. So there was a bit of an impact on the course in terms of there were a few dropouts, but surprisingly, and I was just discussing this with Anna before we opened up the webinar, surprisingly, there was still a very high retention rate for the course despite COVID. We did see changes in terms of a few people maybe being less engaged from the Asian region, for example, at the beginning of the course. It started in January and February. And then that kind of moved towards Europe and the US when COVID started affecting those regions more heavily. Still, it did not have a huge impact in terms of our ability to complete the course successfully, and we're actually really happy to see the results that I briefly presented. In terms of adapting some of the content, we are looking into integrating new content on the course. We may have some content already available for the new wave that's starting in September, and for sure we will be updating the content in future waves of the course also in coming years. So that is certainly something that we're looking into. Thanks so much for that question.
Thanks, Tanya. Another question kind of around evaluation, I would say. It's from a man named Ronnie. How will you measure whether competencies have been developed and attitudes changed, etc.?
So beyond what I didn't really go into this during the presentation, but so throughout the course, there were a lot of opportunities for participants to provide feedback. There were different ways in which participants were assessed. So they were assessed through individual quizzes, for example, but also through team assignments. And there's also the program will also be assessing acquired competencies and skills and the application of those by following up with participants at 6 months after the course. Because, for example, many of the participants, because they're working on very concrete challenges and concrete and context-specific challenges, some participants, at least in some of the teams, they were really looking forward to then implementing the action plans that they developed during the course. So this is certainly something that we want to follow up on and see whether that happened, how it happened, challenges that they identified in the implementation, for example, and things that we can then maybe integrate in future waves of the course. So that's how that will be assessed.
Perfect. Thanks, Vanya. A couple just kind of practical questions. Is the registration link for attendees the same as for tutors, or is there another avenue that tutors can be applying for? And can you maybe discuss a little bit of some of the requirements you're looking for in people who are interested in applying as a tutor?
Yep. So the registration link that we sent is just for future participants. It's not for tutors. Normally what we do for tutors is we open a time-limited call for tutors, and we just had one closing in May, and that will be attracting tutors who will help support the next wave. We will also be using so some of the tutors who basically dedicated their time and support for the first wave will also be contributing to the second wave of the course. But because we're opening the course for a larger pool of participants, we of course needed a larger number of tutors. And that's why we opened this second call for tutors. There will be future calls for tutors in the future. So if you're interested, please keep an eye out for our calls, which we normally post on the WHO website, the aging website of WHO. And generally what we look for in that role is a mix of some background on aging, and teaching experience is very important. Also experience managing online platforms, language competencies, and experience also managing multicultural groups. Because again, I mean, I didn't explain this, but we had, I did explain that we had participants coming from 65 different countries. I didn't explain that these were grouped in a total of 47 teams. And normally we try to pull together participants in teams of a similar time zone so that they can at least, when they're joining synchronously, they don't have huge difficulties because of time differences. But it is, of course, very important that tutors have those competencies to really engage in multicultural groups and be conducive to critical thinking and to learning.
Terrific. Thanks, Vanya.
Yes.
Let me just look through. Can you provide a couple examples, or even one kind of salient example of some of the group work that's being done? So what are some of the kind of the course deliverables, and can you expand on kind of some examples of some of the things that have been submitted?
Yeah. So the biggest kind of assignment, and this is going back to that point that I mentioned earlier in terms of this having this element of incremental learning throughout the course. So basically the biggest assignment starts from module 1. And here, this is a module where participants identify challenges related to older populations. Then they work together with their teams on those challenges, and they bring it down to just the one challenge that they all want to focus on in the group. And then they identify solutions, possible solutions for that challenge using the healthy aging framework. And then they start refining that solution, and they eventually develop an action plan that would help them bring that solution into practice in real life. And those are assignments. I mean, there are different assignments to get to that end goal of that action plan embedded throughout the different modules of the course. Something else that's very important, and which I mentioned also throughout the presentation, and is relevant to this point, is that there's that element of feedback. So there's feedback loops embedded throughout the different modules of the course. So participants not only get feedback from their tutors and from other peers, but they also go outside of the course to other experts that they maybe know and to older people themselves to get that reflection as to whether the action plans and the ideas that they have actually make sense in real life. And then that is a very important element, because that is something that normally you would have to do if you're developing an action plan for a program in real life. So involving all relevant stakeholder groups is an embedded part of the program that will hopefully then enable participants to do that in real life when they start developing these programs and these policies in their work.
Perfect. Thanks, Vanya. Just to confirm, I've got a few questions in the Q&A box about costing of the course. My understanding is that it's a free course for anyone who is attending. I want to confirm that with you before sharing that broadly.
Yeah, so as being WHO, we always try to offer all training opportunities free of charge. So the course is free of charge. It is currently available in English only, but as I mentioned, we are looking to translate the content and also identify tutors with relevant language competencies to be able to deliver the course in other languages in the future. Yep.
Thanks, Vanya. And a little bit, again, more technical question, but in terms of time commitment, I know for myself when we did, there was people kind of, there was varying degrees of time commitment, but generally speaking, can you kind of tell people what would be the expectation in terms of time and commitment for the course over the course of the 12 weeks you said it was?
14 weeks.
14 weeks.
Which may be increased to 15, but we're looking into that as we're now refining, part of that refining phase.
Right.
The time commitment really varies depending on the participant, I would say, and it really varies depending on the module, the specific module you're at. But one of the, so we did receive feedback that we had estimated that it would take around 3.5 to 4 hours, I think, 3.5 hours per week. And some participants did reflect that they ended up investing more time per week, especially in some of the modules. Part of the process that we're following now as we're refining the course is to try to see whether there is, whether we can streamline some of the content even further and maybe reduce a few assignments to make it more manageable within the time frame that we had anticipated the course to have. But yeah, so I mean, I can't answer a definite, this is the time that is normally, that people normally need to commit, because we may be making a few changes here and there. But in principle, it should be between 3.5 hours to 4 hours a week.
Thanks, Vanya.
Yeah.
And can you talk just a little bit about kind of passing and accreditation and kind of what you get after you've completed the course in terms of certification and things like that?
Yes, of course. So there are two certificates that you can obtain after the course. There is a certificate of completion, which participants would basically get if they basically engage with with at least 80% of the content of the course. And then there is a certificate of achievement, which is the key performance indicator that I was talking about earlier, which basically relates to participants receiving 70% of or more in graded assignments, which include quizzes, but they also include the team assignments. And I should also just say that in each module, there are both individual tasks and team tasks. So there's always an opportunity to kind of like, and we did see this during the course. So for example, teams were very good at identifying a lead, for example, for a given module, and then changing that lead in the subsequent module, which then meant that a given participant, for example, had to allocate more time maybe this week or during this 2 weeks of this module, but maybe less in the following weeks. So there are always opportunities to accommodate time, and that's why I guess that time commitment question is a bit tricky. But beyond that ability to then accommodate your time to the course, there are also opportunities to kind of like catch up. So for example, if for whatever reason you're not able to complete the quiz by the deadline for module 2, that doesn't mean that you will not ever get the record of achievement, because you will have other opportunities to then gain points through teamwork or through other individual tasks in future modules. I should also say, actually, building on that there are also opportunities to get bonus points. So for example, through the submission of other work throughout the course, and also through the conduct of very good peer reviews of the work of your peers.
In terms of developing the course, Vanya, was there any kind of co-production or co-creation with older adults?
So as we were building on the capacity, as we gathered the capacity building needs for the course, that was through a consultative process that also engaged older people and regional focal points who are in contact with older adults. Yeah.
Thank you. And in terms of the expectation for kind of the products, I know that you were saying that a lot of people were very interested in actually kind of following through on the action plans they developed. Is there any kind of support from WHO in terms of seeing those action plans through, or is there an expectation that those action plans are going to come to fruition at some point in the future?
The expectation is that they will come to, so the expectation is that through the course, participants are enabled to bring a pretty good draft of an action plan that will then give them the elements to be able to implement it in their given context. So there is no expectation that then we will provide additional support once the course is over to see those come to fruition. But there is that element that I mentioned, a follow-up, where we are interested to know whether they were actually developed and implemented, and if not, what actually hindered that process. Because obviously that will then inform what we do in the future and whether we need to incorporate other elements in the program.
Okay, terrific, thank you. All right, we have another question coming in. We've got multiple boxes now open. Can you elaborate on the initial step of identifying capacity building needs?
What concretely?
Sorry?
What specifically?
You know what? Let me. The question is from Ronnie. Ronnie, are you able to talk to us live at all? You can raise your hand, and I can maybe have you ask Evan your question live. Let's see whether he can raise his hand for me. No. Okay. All right. A couple just again just specific questions, Vanya. Can you participate and attend this course if you are also participating in the Age-Friendly Environments Mentorship Program?
Yes, of course. We don't limit we don't limit who accesses. I mean, it may just be a matter of numbers. So as I mentioned earlier, so for example, in the first wave, we were not able to accommodate everyone who signed up. We give normally preference to target audiences. But that doesn't mean that, for example, if you don't get in this wave, for example, that you wouldn't have the opportunity to participate in future waves. And of course, being part of the mentorship program is not an exclusion criteria for the program.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Well, it seems to be kind of all the questions we have today. I know that there's been some issues. I'm getting some kind of feedback from participants that they're not seeming able to access the links that are in the chat box. So I just want to reassure everybody that these will be provided post-webinar as well. So the webinar, the email that we send out to all registrants will have this registration link. So please don't stress about that. And we'll make sure that the recording, the questions, any questions that have not been answered that are kind of precise and technical, we will reach out to Vanya to answer those questions. And again, that link will be provided. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. Vanya, can I turn to you for any closing comments before we close up today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe I can briefly talk to that question that we didn't get before we close, since we have a few more minutes. The capacity building one. I mean, even though I don't know exactly what.
I don't know exactly what he was referring to either, but that was the question. And I would like to understand what were the capacity building needs identified in the course development. That's the question.
What they were, I mean, maybe I can speak to how so the capacity building needs are the ones that I briefly presented at the beginning of the slide. But it was a very comprehensive process that we followed to actually identify those capacity building needs. So beyond us facing those challenges whenever we try to really start generating action at country level, so when we started engaging, for example, with colleagues from specific countries who were looking to develop new plans or develop new programs on aging, so beyond those challenges that we encounter at an individual level, we also went through a comprehensive process of assessing capacity building needs that involved, as I briefly touched on earlier, our regional focal points who are in very close contact with all the countries. So, so again, beyond us, for example, because I provide support in capacity building in countries, and those opportunities always give me a chance to actually see where there may be gaps in a given country, for example, and that information that I gathered through that role also informed the development of the identification of these capacity building needs. But this was also a collaborative effort with our regional focal points, who helped us also determine what was needed and also refine that didactic strategy that could help us get there.
Perfect. Thanks, Vanya. One more kind of interesting question that snuck in just before we close today. We'll say this is our last question. But where are older adults from specific communities included in the consultation process? I.e., is there any kind of inclusion of LGBT kind of themes, or kind of looking at whether it's marginalized communities or inequity across the course at all?
So it is embedded in the fact that participants, for example, when they select challenges, they can select, for example, specific challenges faced by older adults, for example, by older LGBTQI adults, for example, and they in a given community in a given country, for example, and then they can start developing solutions to address the challenges that they have identified through the review of evidence and also through their consultation with older adults themselves. So consultation with older adults is actually integrated into the assignments that participants have in the course. I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but the question of the course in itself has been developed through a consultative process that has included feedback from colleagues from all regions. But then there's that element where we give the voice to older adults, which is again an underlying theme of the entire decade of healthy aging, by really encouraging and pushing participants to go out there and interview older adults in their communities as they are identifying challenges that they perceive that older people encounter. And then as they identify solutions and develop an action plan to respond to those challenges. We want to make sure that the challenges are real challenges for older people. And we want to make sure that the solutions that are provided are adequate solutions for older people. And not just people thinking that these solutions would be effective or that they are the best solutions. So that element is really integrated throughout the program as participants move from one module to the next.
Perfect. Thanks, Vanya. So I'll again turn to you just to any closing remarks for people on the line.
No, I mean, I just wanted to say thanks again for this opportunity. It is a pleasure for me always to share this passion that I have in building capacity and nurturing leadership. And I really hope that I was able to communicate this passion and to encourage you to sign up for the course. We look forward to seeing you in this upcoming wave or maybe in future waves of the program. So thank you so much for your attention and for your great questions.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for your time, Vanya. And for everyone on the line, thank you. Apologies for some of the technical difficulties today. And we will look forward to seeing you for our next IFA WHO age-friendly webinar series. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.